The grave was never meant to be peaceful. When archaeologists opened it, they didn't find a quiet skeleton resting in dirt. They found a sword placed perfectly beside the body, a shield laid as if ready to be lifted, an axe positioned where a hand once gripped it. This wasn't decoration, this wasn't tradition, this was preparation. Because the Vikings didn't believe death was the end. They believed it was only the beginning of something far more violent. And whatever waited beyond the grave, they intended to meet it armed.
We often remember Vikings as raiders, savage, bloodthirsty, men who lived only to burn villages and conquer seas. But that image is incomplete. Vikings were farmers, explorers, poets, traders who traveled farther than almost any civilization of their time. Yet beneath their daily lives existed something darker, a worldview built on fate, death, and honor. A culture that didn't fear dying, but feared dying unprepared. To a Viking, death wasn't an escape, it was a test. And how you died and what you carried with you decided your eternity. Here's what most people don't realize. Viking graves weren't symbolic, they were functional. Weapons buried with warriors weren't offerings, they were tools meant to be used again. Archaeologists have found swords sharpened before burial, shields reinforced, not ceremonial, spears placed in reach of the hands, and armor arranged as if the body might rise. Some graves even contained damaged weapons, bent blades and cracked shields. Why? Because Vikings believed those weapons had already tasted battle and would recognize their owner in the next world. Even more disturbing, some graves show signs the dead were positioned upright, as if standing guard, waiting.
To understand the weapons, you must understand where Vikings believed they were going. Not everyone went to Valhalla. Only those who died violently. Only those who proved their worth. And Valhalla wasn't paradise. It was an eternal battlefield. Every morning, the dead would rise. They would fight, kill each other, die again. And every night, they would feast, only to repeat the cycle forever. This wasn't punishment, it was training, because one day, Ragnarok would come, the final war, the end of gods and worlds, and the warriors of Valhalla would be summoned to fight beside Odin himself. That's why weapons mattered. You didn't enter eternity empty-handed. But there's a deeper reason, one far more unsettling. Vikings believed the dead could return, not as ghosts, not as spirits, but as draugr, walking corpses driven by rage, jealousy, and unfinished business. And if a warrior rose from the grave, he would need his weapon. Some burial mounds were sealed with heavy stones. Others had swords broken before burial, not as offerings, but as precautions, because people feared the dead might come back to reclaim what was theirs. In some sagas, villagers dug up bodies just to remove the weapons, terrified of what might happen if the dead woke up armed. So when Vikings buried weapons, it wasn't always honor. Sometimes it was fear. The Vikings didn't bury weapons because they loved war. They buried them because they believed death was only another battlefield, a place where courage still mattered, where strength still decided fate, where the unarmed would fall again. To them, being buried without a weapon was worse than death itself. It meant weakness, shame, forgetting. So when a Viking was laid to rest with sword, axe, or spear, it wasn't tradition, it was a message.
I am not done fighting. And somewhere beneath the cold soil of the north, some of those warriors may still be waiting.